Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got more transfer updates, an exciting update on the potential replacement for Joe Hart. We've got more news on Peter VINDAHL Jensen, who we spoke about last week. And we've also got a little bit to cover with a striker who could be leaving the club this summer. We've spoken an awful lot about strikers who could join Celtic, but when it comes to leaving, departing, we've not done that quite yet. So, shall we get into today's edition of Celtic Transfer Talk? I struggled to get today out there. Today's edition. That's what I was looking for. Hello! If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It'd be much appreciated. We're trying to get as close to 50,000 subscribers as we can this year, and that's all down to your guys' support. Thank you for that support through the last couple of weeks now that the season is well and truly over and we're in that horrible middle ground of transfer rumours and basically everything that could be a potential signing for Celtic being linked with the club. It's a horrible, messy middle ground of a situation. We're trying to fight our way through until the next campaign, so your support is greatly appreciated. But we have a few things to pick up on today, and a few things for a change with substance. Now, if you cast your mind back to last week, you remember we made a video discussing this man, Peter VINDAHL Jensen, the goalkeeper, the Danish goalkeeper, who has been linked with a move to Celtic, as headlines emerged last week similar to this, saying that Celtic were locked in negotiations for talks over Sparta Prague's new goalkeeper, officially signing for Sparta Prague at the end of the month. He was on loan last season. They have an obligation to buy, and articles last week were detailing this sort of information, saying that Celtic were locked in negotiations for Peter VINDAHL Jensen. Football Scotland at the time believed that they were, not wanting to lose the keeper, but looked as though it could happen with Celtic keen to negotiate with Sparta Prague in the coming weeks. Well, we've had an update on Peter VINDAHL Jensen over the past 24 hours, and if you remember in that video last week, I said out of all the goalkeepers that we've been speaking about, this one may have the most substance, and this is the one that I have a sneaky feeling might become Celtic's new number one. Well, after today's update, that sneaky feeling is growing ever stronger, and it's looking even likelier. In Stephen McGowan's transfer briefing today with the Daily Mail, this is what he said right at the end of his article in regards to Peter VINDAHL Jensen. He said that Celtic have prioritised Danish goalkeeper Peter VINDAHL Jensen as the first choice to replace Joe Hart. The 26-year-old former AZ Alkmaar keeper is likely to command a fee in excess of £4 million. So the original story, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, the original story was broke by Mark Hendry last week via Football Scotland. We've been waiting to see if anybody else came out to kind of back up the source and give any more detail to it. Stephen McGowan today, one of the more reliable journalists in the Celtic scape of things, has came out and gave his word on it, saying that he is now first choice for Celtic, which I personally believe is very exciting news, because the more that I've looked into Peter VINDAHL Jensen over the past week, the more that I've heard firsthand about him as well, it seems like this would be a pretty good replacement. Ticks a lot of boxes when it comes to being the new number one at Celtic and to take Joe Hart's gloves off him. So apparently now the first choice and a fee of over £4 million needed to secure the signature. So the fee of £4 million comes as no surprise, down to the fact that his permanent move to Sparta Prague this summer will come at a cost of £3 million, so they will be looking for profit on that. I'm actually quite surprised that the fee remains low as £4 million. Now, one thing to keep in mind here is it's saying a minimum of £4 million, so I imagine negotiations might take that number up a little bit, but he's just signed a contract with Sparta Prague. He's going to have a number of years on that. He's signed for £3 million. I thought that Sparta Prague would be looking for at least maybe double their money. So £4 million for a keeper who we spoke about in depth in last week's video and looked at the positives of him, I think is a good price, a good steal. He's in a good age range as well. We're not signing someone who has got someone else who's going to be retiring in a couple of years' time. We're signing somebody who's played in European football, played in the Europa League this season and got to the last 16 in their quarterfinals with Sparta Prague against Liverpool. we're looking at somebody who genuinely looks quite decent, and for a decent sum of money as well. This is the money I was hoping that Celtic would go out and spend. I didn't want them to go out and sign a free agent like, you know, an Asmir Begovic, or spend less than £1 million on a Martin Dubravka. Some of these names have been thrown about with. This one for me just ticks a lot of boxes, and seeing him now as first choice apparently for Celtic, well, I'm hoping that means that negotiations are well underway and hopefully they end successfully. If you want to find out more about the goalkeeper himself, we did talk about him a little more in depth in last week's video, if you go back and find that. But just to recap, he made 47 appearances for Sparta Prague throughout the 2023-24 campaign, conceding 59 but keeping 15 clean sheets across the top flight in the Czech Republic, the Europa League and Champions League qualifying as well. So he looks like somebody I think it could be a really good keeper. He's got that experience, a little bit older as well, 26 years of age, entering the best years of his career. Won the Czech double last year, with the Czech top flight and the Czech Cup being won. So yeah, I like the look of him. Now apparently top target for Celtic, so it looks like this might be the guy. This might be the one. Of course, yesterday we spoke about those Martin Dubravka rumours and such, but as I said, I think a lot of that is nonsense. This one seems like it actually has got substance to it, and this could lead to something, so we'll see how it develops, but Celtic have got their eyes on the prize. Also in this Stephen McGowan article, there was an interview with Scotland internationalist Scott McKenna, and they discussed the prospect of him becoming a Celtic player this summer. As we all know, Scott McKenna's name has been thrown about an awful lot this window, with a potential move to Celtic or Rangers after becoming a free agent this past window. He spent the last few months on loan to Copenhagen in the Danish top flight, but his contract with Nottingham Forest came to an end, which means he's a free agent, and naturally interest seems to be drumming up with both Celtic and Rangers. Scott McKenna himself has commented on that, and that interview was in this article. Scott McKenna said this in relation to Celtic and Rangers, saying it's just natural when you've got teams the size of Celtic and Rangers. I know a lot of people who support both teams. It's going to happen, these rumours. They're going to question you, but there is nothing to tell. For me, it is completely on the back burner. I have to do everything I can in training to try and get whatever minutes I can on the pitch here with Scotland. Anything after that will take care of itself. So Scott McKenna ruling nothing out at this moment, keeping his cards close to his chest. God knows if there has been any official contact with the club in regards to Scott McKenna. He's somebody who definitely splits a lot of opinion. I think some people would be more than happy to see him sign for Celtic. A lot of people a bit reluctant to see him sign for the club at the same time. He's just one of those kind of polarising players, but he's got the Euros to focus on right now with Scotland. I don't know if he'll start games or not. We'll need to wait and see, and maybe you can make an evaluation from there if you'd want to see him become a Celtic player. My opinion of Scott McKenna has always been, listen, I think he'd be a great option to have, but listen, after yesterday's reports with the Austrian centre-half, I know who I want Celtic to sign. Scott McKenna is a bit of a hot and cold player, has his moments, both good and bad, but I don't know. He might end up becoming a Celtic or Rangers player, but I don't think it's one that Celtic need to desperately try and go in for. He's at a good age as a free agent, which does offer its good, its positives, its good bits. But listen, we'll just need to wait and see what happens after the Euros concludes, and then I imagine Scott McKenna will get himself in the shop window. But you can go and read his full interview on the Stephen McGowan article, also with the update on Peter VINDAHL JENSEN, amongst other things. Aye, Scott McKenna, would you take him or would you leave him? So final story for today is in relation to Celtic striker O and his potential departure from the club this summer. These were some of the headlines that were floating around today, saying that O gets his Celtic transfer exit chance as Genk kick off talks with the fringe striker over a move to Belgium. The article goes on to say that Genk want a summer move for Celtic striker O. Belgian sources have confirmed that talks have already begun over a potential move. They're keen to land him. They've made the 23-year-old one of their top targets. It remains to be seen if it would be a loan move or a permanent move, depending on Celtic's stance. So it does look as though O will be on the move this summer. I'm not surprised by this at all. If you go back and watch all my videos from the top of the transfer window and the end of the season, when I done my listings of players who could leave and should leave, I had O on that list. It just seems like his place in the Celtic side is now gone. And for the betterment of his own career and for the betterment of opening up space in this Celtic squad for other players, O should be one of those players to move on, whether it is permanent or whether it is a loan move. So it looks as though he will get his move in this transfer window. It's just a question of whether or not it's on a permanent basis or on a loan. Now remember, Celtic spent £2.8 million on O last January. Quite a lot of money for a player who hasn't really came in and kicked on the way that we maybe wanted him to. He came in as the intended Giacomakis replacement and hasn't really lived up to that level. Adam Ida came in this past January and he's lived up to that level, which has totally knocked O out of the equation here at the club. So £2.8 million is a lot of money to spend on a young striker, and I'm sure that Celtic will want to recoup as much of that as possible, if not make a profit. Doesn't matter if he's not been scoring goals. This is somebody that if he's wanted, Celtic will try and get the most out of, which to me indicates we might see a loan move initially here. Maybe a loan move that has an option or an obligation to buy come the end of it, which means Celtic can get back as much of that £2.8 million as possible. I'm not too fussed if it's a loan deal or a permanent deal. I think a permanent deal is probably more beneficial so that we can just move on from the situation entirely and we don't need to worry about shifting them this time next year. However, if they want to send them out on loan to see if he regathers any form and then maybe evaluate it again, it wouldn't be the worst idea. I think what's most important is that he does find a move this summer. Genk would be an ideal place to go, playing at one of the top teams in the Belgian top flight. So it's an attractive move for him. It's a move that can get money for Celtic as well. As long as he moves on, I think that's the priority, but I think we're going to see the back of O this summer. And that does it for today. That's the biggest updates on the transfer front for Celtic, both in relation to players who could be coming in and leaving. Let me know your opinions in the comments below. Are you happy with Peter VINDAHL JENSEN being Celtic's new number one? Should the talks go successfully? And what is your opinions on O leaving the club as well? I've been very vocal on my opinion, so I don't think I need to drill it in here. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.